Here we go.
Do it.
Okay, cool.
Here we go.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Coffin Talkin', where we unravel the mysteries, embrace the peculiar, and find humor in the unconventional world of funerals and death. I'm your host, Holly. I'm here with Frank, the
Hi.
mortician. How are you doing?
Good.
How's your week been?
It's been okay. I haven't really complained that much about it. I try not too much anymore because really, who's there to listen? Especially in my
They're
line
not
of
talking
work.
back.
Yeah, no one's talking back to me, and yeah, they are good listeners, but they don't really come
They're
up with
great
many.
listeners.
They don't come up with many solutions. So
Well, I'll say on the good days they don't talk back.
oh my gosh, yeah, that is a good day, and I have in reference to that, I have had bad days.
We've already heard about a few.
No, I mean specific where they talk back. So
oh, great. Oh,
so we'll talk about that when you've heard that story. So anyway, how was your week?
It was good. We had a friend visit from out of town, so it was really fun.
Mm-hmm. I know your friend. She's wonderful.
Yeah, she's just so much fun. So it was really great to have her here for just a little visit, and it just gets me so excited to come home for Christmas.
Yeah, kind of my week. I haven't really. It's been kind of slow, which is nice because now I have a chance to catch up on all the stacks of paperwork that I've had to just follow up on and follow through with. So it's been good in that regard.
I'm sure, especially at the end of the year, things pile up.
Yeah. It's interesting. Deb has a way of people have a tendency to hold on for the holidays. And we've talked about this before. Usually a week before Thanksgiving, all of your business will kind of not come to a standstill, but will really slow down. And then it picks up between Thanksgiving and the week before Christmas. And then again, it slows down but the week before Christmas. And then it's kind of mild between Christmas and New Year's because people want to experience those holidays.
One last time.
For one last time. So it's very interesting how that works out.
That is really interesting. It just it says a lot about how much control we actually have.
Yeah, true.
In our lives. And
it could be painful for them to try and linger and hang on.
Right.
I think when I worked in geriatrics, the hardest and most sad thing that I could experience and see is that even though they hung on, no one came to see them.
Oh,
and that
really?
that was the hardest thing ever
to
actually witness, because they talked to me and is my daughter coming today? And yeah, it's sad. Anyway, what else? Should we go ahead and begin?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start on that note.
The sad note, let's bring it on.
On that sad note, let's go ahead and be frank.
All right, thanks. So today I want to talk a little bit about family dynamics and what it is that we sometimes experience or take note of, but then don't know exactly how to interact with it. Mm-hmm. But I first want to start with I'm going to call it a parable, and this will relate to the story, but I'm going to call it the parable of the potatoes, the eggs, and the coffee beans.
Okay.
So a young lady comes to her father, who happens to be a chef. And she comes to him and she starts complaining about her life and not knowing exactly where it's headed, what she can expect to have happen in her life. And he just silently starts doing what he does, cooking. So he pulls up 3 pots and he puts water in each pot, and he puts each pot on the stove, and then he turns on the heat and waits for the water to boil. When the water boils, he puts in potatoes in one pot. He puts eggs in another pot, and then he puts coffee beans in the third pot. And she continues talking and looking at him thinking, what is it you're doing? Why are you doing that? So after about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, he starts to remove the product. So he removes from the first pot the potatoes, then the eggs, and then leaves the third pot, the coffee, of course, alone. So he looks at her and he says, would you mind touching that potato? And she touches it and she says, how does it feel? She's a little squishy. Okay. Now, would you mind just breaking that egg and just opening it up and see what happens? And so she opens up the egg, and sure enough, it's hard boiled.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes to the coffee and he goes, okay, now that you've done that, here, I'm going to share this with you. And so he pours in a little bit of coffee, and they both enjoy a cup of coffee, and they're enjoying talking and everything. And he goes, and so she said, or no, he looks at her and he goes, so do you get the message? And she said, what message? What are you trying to tell me? And he said, well, every single one of these products have been placed in the same environment, the boiling water. When the potato first went in, it was very hard and durable, or hard and sturdy, and not wanting to, it was hard to penetrate or to break. But after 20 minutes in the water, the potato became soft.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, and he said, what about the egg? The egg at first was fragile. And you could now put it in, and now it's become a hardened center. Yeah. But the coffee, or the coffee bean, does something different. It not only changes its characteristic, but is able to be shared with others in a whole new different form. He said, how do you respond to the different environment that you've been placed into? Are you a potato, an egg, or a coffee bean? So since I started it as being a parable, here's the moral, or a fable. Let's call it a fable because there's a moral to it. Mm-hmm. The moral is, in life, things happen around us, things happen to us, but only things that truly matter are what happens within us. And so that's the coffee bean. So whatever happens within us, the coffee bean, under the same circumstance, decided to share what it had within it. So now, that being said, any comments on that at all? I kind of like the parable, the fable.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's a good thing to remember.
So, Holly, what is it that's in your life that is probably one of the most, what could pull from you, and we're going to go back to the coffee, what's inside, and help you heal or even be better?
Yeah, I think just overall, as a concept, love.
Oh, yeah.
Easily.
Mm-hmm.
Just the ability to love and to share love with other people. Mm-hmm. And then obviously you would hope that you could find that in a family dynamic, but if it is in a family dynamic, I think that's the most powerful thing. So you have those close-knit ties. Mm-hmm. That now when you share that love or you share concern, whatever it might be for someone, it's these people that know you the best out of anyone on the planet. And so it just becomes that more meaningful.
Thank you. I agree with you on that. And so family dynamics, and when we go back to the fable, I think it's interesting that the daughter went to the father with concerns that she was having in her life.
Right.
And so the story today that I'm going to share is a little bit different. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. This was my first experience with something like this. And that's probably the only reason I remember the story. So I have to name the individuals involved, because otherwise it gets too convoluted and you can't your brain will think, hold it, who am I talking about now? So
yeah.
So one girl I'm going to call Julie. Another girl I'm going to call Gloria. And it's the story of Julie that we want to talk about. So Gloria came into the mortuary one afternoon and she said, I need to talk to you about my girlfriend, my partner who passed away. And I said, oh, okay. And Gloria, I better write down these names too, just so I don't get confused. Sorry.
Oh my God.
Okay. Gloria, Julie.
Hold it. Who are we talking about here?
Yeah. Okay.
Halfway through. Let's just start over.
Yeah. Hold it. Did I name her
new names?
I'm getting confused. All right. Whatever. So Gloria comes in and she starts talking to me about her partner, Julie. And in the state that we were in, did not recognize same-sex marriage, same-sex compatibility. They would just identify themselves as partners. They actually, when it came to death, there's a hierarchy of who has control over what happens to that individual that passed away, and where they were not married, then it immediately falls to children, which there were no children, and so it goes to the parents. So the parents are the ones that had the responsibility to take care of her final disposition or burial.
And let me just ask really quickly, what year was this?
mm, 80,
or around?
probably 87, sometime between 87 and 90.
Okay.
Okay. And that's 1887. I'm kidding.
Well, yeah, that's a given.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Holly. So anyway, Gloria came in and was talking to me about this, and I explained to her the different hierarchy that even though she was a partner, a companion to Julie, who had passed away, she really had no control over what was
No
going to happen to
say.
Julie.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said the only thing that we could do, and if you want to do this, we have to go ahead and wait an extended period of time to see if anyone comes forward to claim Julie, to see if we have to put notices in papers and things like that. And so in the course of the conversation, Julie or Gloria said, "Can I go ahead and just plan the funeral for Julie?" I said, "Yes, but again, please understand that I can't really do anything with the planning until I know for sure that you have the authority to do the planning."
Right.
So we went on ahead and we planned out the funeral for Julie, and it was going to be a nice service by what Gloria had wanted. And she had arranged for Julie to be seen, and she wanted to see her herself. And so I went on ahead and did the embalming with the assumption that Gloria was going to pay for the embalming, which she did, by the way.
Uh-oh. Oh,
And
she
then
did.
She did pay for the embalming.
Oh, good.
And then she went on ahead and had just Julie placed on just a little bit of on a table to go ahead and have a small viewing for herself. And so it was set for a specific day. I had Julie on the table. There was Gloria waiting. Gloria went into the room and just started sobbing, just started crying. And I said to Gloria, Gloria, we can't really. I said, we're running into, and at this point, it's probably 2 weeks after the passing, and no one had come forward. And I said, God, if you only knew who her parents were, where they lived, how I might be able to reach out to them. And she just, in a muffled voice, said this, "I know them." I said, "What?" And she goes, "I know them. I know where they live." And she said, "And I can give you their address." And I said, "Well, Gloria, that's all I've asked this whole time. They could give you the permission. Yeah, they could give you permission to handle the services for Julie." So she gave me the address, and it was less than a mile from the mortuary.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, less than a mile. And so I got in the car the following day, got into the car, went to the house, walked up the house, very nice home. Mm-hmm. Outside was, it was beautiful. Walked up to the door and I knocked on the door and I said, "Is Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so here?" And it was a brother to Julie, I guess, that had answered the door. And he said, "Yes, please come in." So I stood there in the entryway, and out comes the parents, the mother and father. And they come out and they go, "I'm here in red to talk to you a little bit about Julie." "Oh, what has she done now?" That was the first comment. And I said, "Well, I do represent a local mortuary." And the mother just started breaking down. And she just started crying. And the father goes, "Did she die?" And I said, "Yeah, she did." And I could see that I was in the right home because I could see pictures of Julie, in the room that we were standing. And so just looking around, and the father looks at me and he goes, "Well, you know that in this house, Julie doesn't really exist."
What?
And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, a couple of years ago, she came to us and said that she was gay. And we just don't permit that in this home." And I'm starting to get in my mind a clearer and more accurate visual as to what's been taking place in Julie's life.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well," and he goes, "In fact, how did you find out about us?" And I said, "Well, her girlfriend." "Oh, her girlfriend told you about us?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "That's why I'm here." And he goes, "Well, I'll tell you what, we are probably responsible to take care of Julie. This is what I want done." I said, "Well, Gloria has already arranged to have her embalmed. Fine, but nothing else is going to happen. We will go ahead and place her in a casket. I want the most economical casket you've got. Go ahead and place her in that. We'll make arrangements to have her buried at such and such a cemetery. I want you to take the time necessary to get her to the cemetery and have her buried. I said, well,
Mhm.
what about Gloria? She wants to have some sort of a service. There will be no service, and Gloria is not to know anything about what we've just discussed.
What?
Yeah. And the mother, you could hear her fighting back tears.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, well, geez, I wonder what the mother wants.
I
But
know.
the
Let
father
her
was,
speak.
yeah, the father was so direct on what it was that he wanted for his daughter. And he said, look, she's been gone for I think it was the time frame was 6 to 8 years. I can't remember specifically,
Mm.
but he said she hasn't been part of this family for that amount of time. She had no respect for us at all when she lived here. So let us do the honorable thing as far as making sure that she's buried. I said, okay. And I said, do you want to know? Nope. That's what
They
he
didn't
said.
even care how she died.
Didn't care how she died. He didn't care when she was going to be buried. Nothing. He didn't want to know anything. And so he then left the room. And then the mother looked at me and she goes, and she handed me a piece of paper and it had her phone number. And she goes, well, you could just call me. Just tell me what's happening with her. And I said, do you want to come by? And she said he would leave me if he found out that I went to visit with her.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I go, oh, wow. Okay. But she did ask the name of the mortuary and I told her, and I brought some forms. And so she signed the forms that allowed me to go ahead and do whatever I needed to do in order to get her buried. So I went back to the mortuary and there stood Gloria still. And she goes, did you talk to the family? And I said, yes. She said, did you talk to the father or to the mother? I said, both. And she said, did the father stay for the entire conversation? Like she knew this guy. Stay
Yeah.
for the entire conversation. I said, no, he said what he needed to say and then left. And she said, and the mother, you were able to talk to her? And I said, yes, for a brief bit. Because while we were talking, he yells for her to come to the other room.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. If her name was, I'm going to use your name, Holly. Holly, I think we're done. Yeah, something
Oh
like
my
that. And so
gosh.
she just looked at, when that comment was made, she just looked at me and you could see tears welling up in her eyes. And no one wants to see or even hear about the death of a child, their own child.
Right.
So anyway, she went on ahead and left the room. The brother showed me to the door and I left. So as I was talking to Gloria, she goes, so when do they want to have services? I said, I can't tell you that. And she goes, what? And I said, yeah,
Mhm.
they've kind of rooted you out of the service or the picture completely. And she goes, well, that's not fair. And I said, fair or not, they're the ones with the final right of disposition. And so at this point, I'm going to have to ask that you leave the building and then just go ahead and know that we'll be taking care of her in the way and manner in which the family wants us to handle things. So she left sobbing, of course. And the next morning when I came in, I had a service to go first thing on. And I went on ahead and made arrangements to have her buried at a particular cemetery 2 days later, and had it order the casket that allowed Julie to be placed into. But when I came back from the services, I guess the other personnel didn't get the message, but there she was. She was almost on top of Julie. Gloria was almost on top of
Yeah.
Julie, lying alongside her, just weeping and sobbing. And Julie had already been placed inside the casket. And so I was afraid the casket was going to topple over and I just said, oh my gosh, Gloria, how'd you get in there? You need to get out. And
Yeah.
so she got out of the casket. She was in the casket. She got out
Oh
of the
my gosh.
casket, and then I asked her once again to leave, and she said, "Please tell me where you're going to take her, where she's going to be buried." I said, I can't tell you that. You really have. The family has been very clear as to what their requests have been. I can't share that with you."
I
So
can't
she
tell you,
left.
but if you were
Yeah.
to follow in your car.
Well, she didn't even know that when that would happen. It would happen the day
Oh yeah, when
following.
it would.
So anyway, so once she left, I made sure that the rest of the personnel knew that she was not to know any information about what was happening with Julie, and there was nothing on the schedule board. Her name, Julie, was just on the board with it was blank for where the services were, viewing, everything was just blank. It just said Julie.
Mm-hmm.
And so no one would be the wiser. So the following day, I took Julie in her casket out to the cemetery, had the burial, came back, notified the mother that the burial had taken place, and she was grateful for that. And then I thought it was over. And the mother said, she called me. She was concerned that maybe she wouldn't be able to remember her daughter at all. And I just in the small course of the conversation that I'd had with the mother, I decided it was important for her to have something of her daughter. So I took a lock of hair, and I didn't let anyone know. I just had it hidden away. And she said, "God, I wish I'd have seen her. I wish I'd." And all these wishes that start coming up, knowing that they should have done something more. And so I just said, "Can I come over and see you real fast? Is your husband around?" No, he's at work. And I said, "I'm going to come over and I'll spend 5 minutes. I just want to come over to the house." And she said, "Okay." And so I handed her the lock of hair, and she just bawled. And she said, "Oh my gosh, Frank, you have no idea what this means to me." So about 2 weeks later, I walk into the building, and my supervisor says to me, "Frank, there's a young lady up on the table you need to embalm." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I went on upstairs and went on ahead and pulled the sheet back, like I always do, to look at the face. Right. And the name that I was given was Sylvia. And I went up there and said, "Okay, Sylvia, hi, let's see what we're doing here." And pulled the sheet back. It wasn't Sylvia. It was Gloria.
What?
Yeah. And she had taken her own life. And I just thought, my whole body just sank because she left there sobbing, wanting to know what was happening with Julie. I was strict and pretty clear that she was not wanted at that service, and I just thought that I just serve as a catalyst to her passing. And for the life of me, it was totally a shock to me, recognizing that here someone cared so much about Julie that she felt she couldn't live without her. And so 2 weeks after the 2 weeks after the burial of Julie, she ended up taking her own life. So I go back to the fable. So what was the mother when she began? Was she the potato? Was she the egg? Was she the coffee? Who was the father? The potato, the egg, or the coffee? And what was Julie? And I just think to myself now, whenever I think of that fable and whenever I think of the story, I always wonder, how can we be a little bit different and allowing our inner self to be spread to actually help other individuals and be that type of individual that we should be. And we've talked about this before. We should just be that type of individual where we actually want to help other people and be a part of another person's life. In life, things happen around us. All of our environments are the same. You can see why does sometimes in my family, and you can look at your own family dynamics. In my family, when I was growing up, I have 9 or 8 brothers and sisters. We all were raised the same way, in my estimation, and yet not one of us turned out to be the same. And I mean, as far as there are some of us that took different roads, different directions. And so you just kind of wondered, how in the world, if we're all in the same environment or atmosphere or circumstance, things happen to us, but the only thing that truly matters is what happens within us. So depending upon how you were raised, what circumstances you were involved with and placed into would allow you that opportunity to actually see and what took place. So I think back often upon not so much Julie, but Gloria, and how even though the parents knew that Julie was involved with someone, how that attitude had changed to the effect of, I guess, the ripple effect as to how Gloria may have been affected by that. And I don't think they took that into consideration.
Right.
So anyway, that's my story of Julie and Gloria.
Oh, that is just heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. And then
It's
to hear
heartbreaking
someone
for
say,
everyone involved.
yeah. And the thing that I think I would never, if I had found out that one of you children had passed away, I would never be that cold. Even if you had left,
No.
even if you had left home and were doing something different that I did not agree with, if I'd heard of your passing, I would do everything I could to make sure that others had the opportunity to at least say goodbye or offer their
Right, right.
final condolences. So yeah, it's just very interesting to me how that all played out, and then the mother's weeping
Mhm.
in for her own daughter, and I could see that that love was there,
Yeah.
even though, and I, in the course of our conversation with Gloria, Gloria had to have had some conversation with her because she knew that she would talk to me
Right.
and the father would not. And so even in our smallest of conversations, but then for the mother's comment of, no, he'd leave me if he knew that you were, if he knew that I knew when she was going to be buried. So
Mm.
hopefully they've gone to the cemetery a number of times just to pay their respects to their daughter, but
Right.
never once while she was physically visible to do that. So anyway, interesting story. It's much longer and much more detailed than that in writing it, but
Right.
for the sake of the episode and brevity, just to let you know a little bit about what does actually still transpire. And I think
Yeah.
that there are so many different family dynamics. If there's one thing that someone could learn from this episode is that look at your family dynamics, look at the dynamics that are in your associations with other people, and just see how you can make that change that might be
Right.
necessary to allow someone else to feel more comfortable around you.
Yeah. Or what, I don't know. Are you allowing a grudge or something to separate not only yourself
Yeah,
but
to create a wedge.
ostracize one person of your family or two, three, whatever. But yeah, to create a wedge. Because honestly, I think that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people just have their own opinions and they have their own ways of thinking. And
Mm-hmm.
they have this sort of righteous indignation when they see someone that they love and care about so much doing something that they don't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
But in your field, it just becomes such a stark reality that,
Yes.
yeah, you had this and you were separated from your daughter for 6 to 8 years because of this, and now she's dead.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And now they have to live with that,
And it might
saying,
be,
if we had only reacted differently, or if we had only reached out.
yeah. Yes. I will say this in defense of that family, though, in off in the distance, I could see the brother. And
Mm.
the brother didn't make any comments or contractual agreements with anybody. And so I know that the family was aware when it occurred because he was there. And I don't know if he just staked
Oh,
out
he
the
was there at the
funeral.
burial?
He was, yeah, but far off. I could see him.
Oh,
I
okay.
recognized him only because I saw him when he opened the door. But I do know that at least one family member was there, and I don't think that he went with the approval of the parents.
Yeah.
But you could tell that he was shaken when I went to the house and told him that his sister had passed away. So
Mhm.
anyway, I guess there is some, but I just couldn't understand that philosophy of a parent. And and even though the gay lifestyle was new, kind of new, not as forefront as it is in today's society, but
Yeah, it wasn't as accepted
it
either.
would, yeah, it wasn't accepted actually at all, really. And
Yeah.
so um, yeah, I can, yeah, but to be that, I guess, harsh about it
Mhm.
is something that I'll never forget. And plus the father not knowing me from anyone else and being that so forthright to me and so blunt
Yeah.
about a daughter. So anyway, I always want to go back to the fact that we are children of God, right?
Right.
In the long run, we are all children of God, and so when you hear those comments, it does make me sad a little
Yeah.
bit.
And it does
Anyway.
just bring it right back to the story at the beginning that you shared, the fable of just,
Yep.
we're all in a boiling pot. We all go
Yeah.
through really painful experiences through life, but you just have to say, how am I going to let this affect me to my core, who I am? Is it going to make me harder? Is it going to make me more fragile? Is it going to be something that acts as a catalyst, and now I have more experience and I can share and I can help other people in the pot?
Yeah. And I think that's the key right there. The last of the three is being able to share the experiences that you've gone through and allow others to actually learn from them as well.
Right. And just allow other people to help you, because I think a lot of people think, yeah, I'm in this circumstance, or I'm in this situation, and no one understands what I'm going through. No one can relate to me. And that might be true to an extent, but they still love you. They still want to help you. They just need you to tell them how.
You're right. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Any other comments or questions on that at all?
Nothing. I think that's a good kind of end of year reflection to make and say, okay, let's look at the relationships in my life. Christmas time is just classically a time of reconciliation, a time of just love and joy in the world. So take advantage of it. Don't take hard relationships in the new year with you. Well,
that's what it all comes down to.
That is, and that's the most important thing. But until then, thank you everyone for listening, for joining in on another episode with us of Coffin Talkin'. Like, share, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on Instagram at Coffin Talkin'. And we'll see you next week.